we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Live from Little Rock, it's Shane Plays Radio, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. Thanks so much for joining us. Whether you're listening live over the air right now in the central Arkansas metro area on 99.5 FM, and this is the last week, folks, of the station change, temporary station change due to Ouachita Baptist football. So if you're listening on 99.5 live, or if you're listening on 96.5 FM, The Answer, at 5 o'clock on Sunday, then this is the last weekend. So starting next week, I'll be back on my normal station at 1 o'clock Central Time, Saturday on 96.5 FM, The Answer. Thanks to Salem Communications for every year as we kind of move things around. I appreciate that extra replay on the normal station 96.5 FM. But so if you're listening on 99.5 and you're like, what the heck is Geek Talk Radio? Well, I hope you enjoy the show. And I invite you to follow us back over to 96.5 FM at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. Or we also go out as a podcast on multiple ways that I'll mention here in a moment. And the show's also posted on YouTube at youtube.com/GoShanePlays. So I invite you to keep listening any of those ways, and we're glad to have you. So as I said, this is Geek Talk Radio. This is like political talk radio or religious talk radio or fix my car talk radio or whatever, but it's Geek Talk Radio. Gaming, books, movies. If it's geeky, it goes. And I'm a geek. I'm 100% card-carrying certified geek, and I'm proud to share that. So that's what we talk about on the show, and we have a lot of fun. It is talk radio. You can call in at 501-823-0965. That's 501-823-0965. Or you could tweet me at Shane Plays, ShanePlays. Speaking of Shane Plays, the show notes are up right now. I do this every week. I put the show notes up at the same time the show's going at ShanePlays.com, ShanePlays.com. You can go there and get links to my guest and also the news items. So if you missed something or you didn't understand something we're talking about, or you tuned in late or whatever, you want to know more, you can go to ShanePlays.com and get the show notes right now. The show does go out within a few days after the live show. We're a radio show first, podcast second. Love both formats. But it goes out on the blog at ShanePlays.com. It goes out on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and other fine podcast directories. And we're also carried on Krypton Radio. Krypton Radio is sci-fi for your Wi-Fi, KryptonRadio.com. And we're replayed a week delayed on Saturdays and Mondays at 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific. So don't forget about that. Today's the last day of the station change. Thanks for bearing with us through that. We've been doing that for about 6 weeks now. And I want to mention a couple more things here real quick, and then I'm going to introduce my guest. Actually, I'll mention one thing, and then I'll bring on my guest and mention something else. But don't forget that show sponsor Troll Lord Games has an ongoing Kickstarter right now. And it's for their Adventurer's Backpack for Castles and Crusades, which is very similar to what Unearthed Arcana was to Advanced Dungeons & Dragons way back in the day. It brings a whole lot of new character options and gameplay mechanics and options to the Castles and Crusades game. So don't forget about that. Now, with no further ado, I'm going to introduce all of you geeky listeners out there to my guest. Now, he goes officially, I'll ask him how he likes to go by just in conversation, but officially he goes as Douglas H. Cole, and he runs a gaming website called Gaming Ballistic. He's heavy into GURPS, Generic Universal Role-Playing System, but he also does other role-playing systems. And he's got a Kickstarter out there right now that I think is super cool that we'll be talking about. But Douglas, welcome to Shane Plays.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So glad to have you here. So let's answer that first pressing question. Do you like to go by Doug or Douglas?
Either is good. Douglas is more clear. I started going more frequently by Douglas after I worked for a summer at a Chinese restaurant and was called Duck for
Duck.
summer.
Okay.
So Douglas at least was a little less. Foul,
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that'll work. So, Douglas, we'll talk about your Kickstarter here in a second, which I think we'll grapple with it, if you will. But I wanted to share. I have a news item. I'm going to go ahead and throw out there right now, and this is from D&D lead designer Mike Mearls. Threw out a tweet yesterday. And you can follow him literally at Mike Mearls. He said it's Veterans Day. Today and all weekend, all veterans are allowed advantage on one role of their choice per D&D session. So that's an official announcement from the lead designer of Dungeons & Dragons. I just want to get that out there. So, and I guess GMs for other gaming systems could possibly adapt that to, maybe you can adjust the difficulty roll or something like that. But veterans rejoice. D&D, Mike Mearls has saluted you. So
that's funny. It sounds a lot like some of the table rules you do for the Munchkin card game.
Yeah.
Where if you're wearing a certain shirt or it's your birthday, you get to cheat.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So veterans get one inspiration this weekend for being a veteran. And if you're listening to the show by podcast, so you don't hear it for a few days and the weekend's already over, I won't tell anyone if you don't. So anyway, it's the spirit of the thing. So I don't know about you, Douglas. I'm a veteran. So if I happen to roll dice this weekend, then I get to take an inspiration. So
yep, I am not, but I would be happy to give inspiration for those who have provided so much.
Yeah, well, that is a great way to put it. So, and of course, yesterday what was Veterans Day and Remembrance Day if you live in Canada. So here's trivia. As long as we're talking about Veterans Day, do you know why Veterans Day is on November 11th each year? I just read this yesterday.
Is it Armistice Day?
Well, yeah, but it's Armistice Day because it was signed. The armistice evidently was signed on the 11th day of the 11th month, like the 11th hour at like 11 minutes after the hour. Like they took everything down to 11. I don't know why, but so it's 11/11. So I don't know. I just read that. Yeah, I'm sure I've heard that before and forgotten it, but I was reading that yesterday and thought it was interesting. But anyway, moving right along. Let's kind of tell us a little bit about what you do with Gaming Ballistic, your history role-playing games, and then we'll talk about your Kickstarter.
Sure. As with most people, I got into role-playing and when I was like 10 years old playing Dungeons & Dragons.
Right.
I think that my friend Howard had AD&D, and I asked my parents for D&D. My mother, of course, didn't know what the heck I was talking about.
Right.
My father had studied Tolkien a little bit in college, and so they bought me the red and blue box sets.
Right.
Played D&D for quite a while, and then in high school fell in with the gaming crowd.
Right.
And played just about everything. We had D&D. There's a comparative gaming series that I wrote called Violent Resolution. And one of the articles is called Hit Him With My Mace, because that's all the first level cleric could do.
Yeah, I hit him with my mace. Yeah.
I still have memories of that campaign where my friend Ken, who went on to be a rock star game designer for Accolade and other things, we go around the table. Carl would be like, "Ken, what do you want to do?" And he'd just hold up a sign, and he was a ridiculously good artist, so the sign was phenomenally illustrated. It just said, "Hit him with my mace again."
Yeah.
Anyway, so we moved into other things. We dabbled in... We played Robot Warriors, which was a hero system game. We made up characters, but never played Bushido. We had a fantastic Warhammer Fantasy roleplay campaign. That I think something's rotten in Kislev or Empire in Flames, or I can't remember the exact, but that went all summer long or all year long, and that was ridiculous. We would have weekends over at Ken's place, and he'd game with us, and we would just game for like 3 days straight, and we'd barely sleep, and it was
right.
All good things.
Yeah.
We started to play GURPS at the end of 1989 when I was about to graduate from high school.
Yeah, we're pretty much the same generation. I graduated in 90, so.
Right. Right. And so it was one of these things where my friend sort of plunked it down and said, you can play any game with this. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So great, we made up characters. We never played. That happened a lot.
Yeah.
And then I went to college, and I was collecting books as an alternative to eating.
Okay, hold on. That is a true gamer/geek statement right there.
Yeah.
I opted to collect books instead of eating.
Yeah, it's like I would talk to my mother, and she's like, well, what's going on? I just need to go get some ramen and Slim Fast because I bought an extra gaming book, and she's just hiding her head in her hands. But in any case, so I was playing this game, and I wrote about it because one of my favorite scenarios, one of my favorite settings has been the Dark Conspiracy setting by GDW. It was based in their second generation Twilight 2000s type system, and I started the campaign and realized very quickly that the system had real shortcomings, although the setting was wonderfully deep. And so I pulled GURPS off the shelf, converted the campaign to GURPS, and have basically been playing, writing, whatever, kind of ever since. And that was my introduction to, or my into GURPS. I started to blog in 2012, late 2012.
Now, is this Gaming Ballistic? Is this
Gaming Ballistic? Yeah, and I'm sort of coming around to that. I started the blog because I was sort of admiring and aping Peter Del Orto, who wrote GURPS Martial Arts and many other things since. GURPS Martial Arts, and now he's got a lot of Dungeon Fantasy product out there. But I had written an article in like 2002 or 2004 that was called Interior and Terminal Ballistics for GURPS. It had exponential it was basically a way of taking real-world bullet stats and making GURPS stats out of them.
Okay.
And damage and range and, what the...
Like in a repeatable manner, like anybody could take...
Range and all that stuff.
Was this like in a repeatable... So if I had a bullet and I knew the real-world physics for it, I could adapt it to GURPS?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely. And I actually have a feature that I did for a while until I got so into my own projects that I ran out of time. But I have a feature on Gaming Ballistic called the Reloading Press, and I will go over a cartridge. And here are the stats for it. Here's some variants. Here's when it was made, and here's some different weapons that fire it. And because that's really what GURPS is centered around is what's the cartridge, what's the bullet, what's the energy, and what's the
right.
It's really energy in the cross section, your area of diameter. So you'll have to forgive me. I have a doctorate in engineering, so if I reef too far into math land, just pull me back. And
well, for GURPS players, that's the more math, the better. There's GURPS is, and I'll give you my history with GURPS really quick. I've always been aware of GURPS. I never really got to start playing it till within the past year or two. With I met the one Steve Jackson Games Men in Black, company representative here in Arkansas named Tony Dutra, and I've been hanging out with him, playing some GURPS, and we've been doing some cons and stuff together. And then he also introduced me to Mook, Tony Mook Wilson.
Yes.
So I'm kind of, easing my way into the GURPS world, and I like it a lot. I've played, now for IP reasons, they're not exact, things, but Tony has done stuff with, Macross/Robotech.
Sure.
He's done Voltron. He did a Japanese samurai murder mystery. I think he's working on a Transformers one-shot, and it's just really great stuff. And again, it's not official IP.
No, of course.
Right? Yeah, I mean, he's not. Yeah.
And let me take that a step. I want to take what you said and kind of trampoline on it because I'm talking about the math, but the thing about GURPS is that there can be as much or as little mathematics, what I call below the waterline. Right? It's like synchronized swimming. The swimmers are doing their thing, and below the waterline, it's crazy time. Above the waterline, it's slick and graceful,
right.
and it's moving gently, and it's all synchronized. And that's the way really GURPS is supposed to run. All the math, whether it's vehicles design or my crazy bullet system or whatever, all the math goes away at the table.
Right, and it's just 3 6-sided dice.
Roll low at a target number.
Yeah, it's 3 6-sided dice, and that's it. So that I think, and I could add to that from my perspective. I recorded a with Tony. I recorded like a 3-hour via Google Hangouts. Here's how to create a GURPS character, and then we've got a follow-up video I'm editing right now where I did it with Tony and Mook, where they took me through all in a night's work. The 3rd edition intro that was adapted to 4th edition, and I'm editing that right now. And these videos show players how to play. The point is, if you create a character, it can get very involved if you want it to. But once the character is done, all the math's done, and you just roll 3 6-sided dice and play, and it runs really fast.
Yes, and honestly, that is the way that most games should go. If you're doing math at the table, something has probably gone horribly wrong. And, I'm talking about somebody who loves math. I mean, I work with math as my day job. Most of the games that I do, the design work that I do, will have at least one Excel spreadsheet, if nothing else, to test 250,000 trials of this mechanic that I'm working on, so that I can see if I'm generating aberrant behavior or whatever. So, the math is useful, but it's usually not something that you want to do when there's, pizza, nachos, and the adult beverage of your choice at the table.
Yeah. Now, there's always going to be a minor amount of, something, but you're right. GURPS is, I've never seen a game like it where during the construction / development, you can get into some math if you want to, but after that, it's done. I mean, you just roll dice. Here's your target number, 3 6-sided dice, move on.
Right. And there are systems like, I think it was Millennium's End, which I've never played but was familiar with, that, you have target overlays and stuff to sort of simulate. And I think that there was, it's either Millennium's End or Phoenix Command, I think, used an old wounding ballistics model that was designed to say how much tissue was destroyed and what organs were hit and blah, blah, blah. So there are games that will bring that complexity to the table, although the overlay method is really cool.
Yeah, and there are, here's the thing, this stuff is subjective because there's some players that want that and go for it. There's other people that don't,
That's correct.
Yeah. And I mean, you literally, because it is subjective, it's based on opinion and preference, you literally can't say that, well, that's the wrong way to play, or that's the right way to play.
Absolutely not. And I guess I would say that my philosophy in how I'm trying to design games has evolved, right? I used to have a calculator, and I used to have spreadsheets, and I would do stuff fairly real time at the table. And then as I've gotten older and I have less time to game, I wanted there to be more social interaction, more time for the BSing with your friends in character or out that really formed a lot of the core of gaming. And once you get to that place where, to borrow a Buffy the Vampire Slayer quote, the gaming system provides rules, borders, and an end zone. You know kind of what you can do. You know kind of where the game either doesn't support or doesn't want you to go or does want you to go, right? I mean, there's carrot and stick. You could say, oh, these things are easy. Fate is a great example. If you can cast something as related to an aspect, you want to do that because that +2 that you get to the dice by the invocation really skews the odds in your favor. And so that which can be turned into that invoking an aspect or creating an advantage or especially the temporary invocations, if you can invoke that aspect, you have shifted the odds significantly in your favor. And so that which goes down that path is encouraged. That which isn't forbidden. You can do it. It's a narrative game, but it's not reinforced mechanically. And so the emergent behavior is you're pretty much always looking for an aspect to invoke, and that's not a bad thing. It really helps you stay in character. Right.
Yeah, and Fate is designed about being in character and, role-playing and that sort of thing. So, that the system sort of, supports that. And as you're saying, once you actually get down to the table, you see that it works. Now, we're coming up on a break. Before we get to the break, I want tell us a little bit more about your website and what you do with GURPS Day, which I think is a neat initiative. After that, we'll hit a break and we'll come back and talk about your Kickstarter. So.
Okay, great. So quickly, my blog started in roughly January of 2013. I was reading Peter Delorto's Dungeon Fantastic, which is a fantastic blog about dungeon fantasy style gaming, and saying, I think I have some things to say. And I started writing, and somewhere in it wasn't too long after I started it, I started publishing a GURPS piece almost every Thursday. It happens to be GURPS new release day. And so I started saying Thursday is GURPS Day, and then other people started doing it. And it kind of became this thing. And about this last year in January, Phil Reed, the CEO of Steve Jackson Games, got wind of it and apparently sent a note saying, what is GURPS Day and why are we not encouraging this?
Right.
And so it kind of became a thing. And I had some help from Jeffro Johnson, and he wrote a script for me. And then another friend of mine named Merlin, believe it or not, fixed it up so that it would work everywhere. And now
I'm sorry, but I have to say this. So he worked his magic on it. I'm sorry.
Yep.
I apologize in advance for that.
No. I know. You got a break.
Oh, no. I was talking about your buddy Merlin working his magic on it. I was making a bad joke.
It was, I'm sorry. It was.
Hold on, my producer, Zach, is shaking his head at me through the window. It's okay, Zach. We'll get through this.
Yeah.
We'll get through this. All right, so you had a couple of people help you out with it. I know that my stuff from my blog is automatically set up to go in there if I do a GURPS tag post.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and we have 67 blogs. I hope to get to 100. If you've got a blog and it has GURPS on it, it doesn't have to be frequently, GURPSday@gmail.com. Send a note, give me the website, give me the RSS feed, we'll fix you up, and then every Thursday your content will show up in the summary poll.
Well, I've got a new one coming up soon. I've been editing that GURPS How to Play video example, so that should be showing up pretty soon. And I've gotten to think, because GURPS Day as a concept is so successful, I keep thinking, if I do it by this date, I can make it into the next GURPS Day post. So people are thinking that way. So I
think so. And now we've actually got a little group that goes in the background where people are talking about collaborating, and we did the GURPS retreat or trick or treat with GURPS or Halloween special. I think they're talking about veterans doing something specifically for Veterans Day, but it's starting to get to the point where the ideas are feeding off of each other.
Right.
And honestly, if there were ever a setting in one of the GURPS worlds where you could really jump in, I think it could really turn into something pretty amazing. As it is now, it's still pretty cool because there are a lot of people playing GURPS, more than you think, and a lot of people creating content for GURPS because you have to. It's a toolkit.
Right.
And GURPS Day is a great way to see what people are doing and share the creative spirit.
Yeah, GURPS is both an out-of-the-box gaming system and an erector set. So it's a cool thing. I am at this point going to go ahead and take us to a break, but folks, go to gamingballistic.com. And that's where you can find all this great content that Douglas is talking about. And then when we come back, he's got a really cool Kickstarter that I'm actually personally excited about. I'll explain why after the break. But we're talking with Douglas H. Cole, who is a game developer, game writer, and also a PhD. So he doesn't play around, no pun intended. I actually didn't mean that one. And we will be back momentarily with more Shame Plays, Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net. The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
megawars.net.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original, easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays. Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. I'm joined by Douglas H. Cole, who is a GURPS enthusiast and a game author and now a game developer, and also a PhD in engineering. So fascinating guy to talk to. Just wanted to mention again, folks, this is the last week of the station change due to football. So if you're like, why is this on 99.5? You know, we'll be back on our normal station next week at 96.5 at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. Hope you join us. Thanks so much for allowing us to be part of your afternoon. Now, Douglas, I want to talk about your Kickstarter here in a moment, but there's one question I wanted to ask you that I didn't get a chance to before the break. Now, it's obvious that you spend a lot of your gaming time, which as adults with jobs and families and all that stuff now becomes more and more precious. What Are there any other game systems that you get to play with or enjoy every now and then kind of messing around with?
Well, I have played recently. I've played Swords and Wizardry, which was kind of my gateway drug back into the D&D world. I played a little Pathfinder. I would say I unsuccessfully played Trail of Cthulhu. I was introduced to it, and I was playing it wrong. I didn't understand how you're supposed to look at the character generation, and so I didn't have a lot of fun. And then I had a 2-hour interview that I did, because that's one of the features on Gaming Ballistic, with Ken Hite himself. And he set me straight.
Right.
It wasn't harsh or anything. It just, he had a different way of looking at the general and investigative skills in gumshoe systems. And once he explained it to me, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes more sense. And I've always wanted to get back to Night's Black Agents, especially because I just love the monster hunting type scenarios. And I've been playing, I have played recently a couple of different campaigns of D&D 5th edition, which is a wonderful system. I think they did a great job in bringing a lot of reasonably innovative mechanics to a very tried and true set of intellectual property. I love the advantage-disadvantage mechanic where you roll 2 dice and take the best one. Bounded accuracy has a lot of merit to it. And much to my surprise, which is kind of how we'll talk about Kickstarter in a minute, they opened up the system. They published an open gaming license for 5th edition.
Yeah, I think that surprised a lot of people.
It certainly shocked the heck out of me, and it changed my life in a way, because I write for GURPS, I write for Pyramid. It's a great company to write for. The people are very nice. They pay instantly when you finally get published. But D&D is of various forms is the 900-pound gorilla to gain weight and lift steroids and lift working out, right? Something like, I actually looked it up or did the math, somewhere between $8 and $9.50 out of every 10 are spent in D&D, one way or another.
Yeah. It is the
market.
It is the market, but it also allows it's made the market big enough that it allows many other wonderful games to exist as well. You know, and I keep saying that we're not just in a gaming we're in a gaming renaissance right now, not just tabletop role-playing games, but board games and all that. So it's a great time to be a tabletop role-playing gamer.
It is. And so in any case, you know, back in January or so, they opened up the system and published a wonderful system reference dictionary. And I had been playing around with some rules mods, and that was right after the DMs Guild had come out. And, you know, I wanted to expand my marketing, expand my reach. You know, Gaming Ballistic is not a for-profit site. I just do it for fun. And so I was wanting to reach out a little bit, and I had started to look at the basic system and basic D&D, the little free guides that they publish, which were a great way to get into it.
Yep, and their free rules are fairly comprehensive. I mean, you can play some D&D with that.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a dime bag that gets you hooked, but then you have to go out and spend the $150 or probably more like $100 because they're so deeply discounted on Amazon. But you don't have to do that. You can play with what those are. And I wrote about advantage, disadvantage mechanic and the standard array. I looked at the math behind that. What does that mean and how did that come out? And those instantly went to the very top of almost every interview I've ever done, or any post I'd ever done on my website.
And just in case somebody's listening who doesn't know what you mean by standard array, there's 3 different ways, or quote unquote official ways, that you can make a character in D&D right now. Hold on a second. I've got a video trying to play on my computer. There's 3 different ways. You can do the traditional roll dice method. You can do a point buy system, or you do a standard array of 6 numbers and then just assign those wherever you want into the attributes. Right. So I'm still a roll in the die. I like the knuckle biting drama of the dice roll, but I allow my players to use whichever of the 3 they want. Right,
and that's made it into the system that came out of the opening up of the system is a game that I'm developing. I have 400,000 words written called Dragon Heresy. And
yeah, now this is a standalone RPG game.
This is a standalone RPG with its own setting, some innovative mechanics layered on top of SRD5. And I have a great team. I have great playtesters. I'm not quite ready to say who the editor is yet, but you'll have heard of him, and he's a big deal.
That's cool. Well, hey, by the way, if you're looking for another playtester, I'd be happy to. And if you've got enough playtesters, that's fine. You know, won't hurt my feelings. But if you're looking for more playtesters, throw me in there. Or
sure. No, it's something that can always look to use. It's almost done. I mean, the writing is almost done. There are 2 books in it. One is called the Book of Heroes. The other is the Book of Deeds. Heroes is character generation and combat. It's and spells and stuff, and you'll find the table of contents familiar if you've played D&D. And the Book of Deeds has a bestiary. It's got all kinds of setting information, and I was given permission by the writer of Adventure Conqueror King, Alex McChris, to adapt his domain setting rules to the game. The premise of Dragon Heresy is you have a kingdom. It's roughly the size and population of Minnesota. And if you look carefully, you'll recognize the geography, or at least the layout of the cities. But they're hard-pressed, and the king says, okay, go north beyond the wall, because it has to be beyond the wall. Go north beyond the wall, and you sort of in a classic pitch black kind of way, Vin Diesel, I'm blanking on the movie.
Well, the first one was called Pitch Black.
Yeah, the first one was called Pitch Black. I'm blanking on the second one, which the tagline is
Chronicles of Riddick.
Thank you, Chronicles of Riddick.
Yeah.
So you keep what you kill is the classic thing. Go up beyond the wall. If you can carve out an area and keep it safe for a year, and you pay the royal duty, we will make you a noble.
Right, because it helps the kingdom, because they get more stability outside the walls.
There's a reason why the kingdom needs help, and there's a reason why there's a wall and there's a reason, and it's all baked into the setting. But the whole point of that is that Alexander was very generous. You know, his system is OGL, but that doesn't mean I don't ask for permission anyway, because if you're going to do something with someone else's ideas, it's nice to ask.
Yeah, it's polite. Well, I want to clarify to people listening, this is not your Kickstarter. This is a whole separate thing you're working on.
Yeah, and I'm telling you this story to tell you another one. So because it's 400,000 words, to bring that to market is going to be like, call it $25,000 of block and tackle, $25,000 of art, and $25,000 of printing. My very first Kickstarter cannot be an 80, and then you have to gross it up for the Kickstarter taxes and takes and fees and all that. My very first Kickstarter cannot be, give me 80 grand.
Right.
And so I got some harsh but fair advice from a very well-known Kickstarter expert. He's done 3 or 4 of them. They're usually small. He could probably pull off $100,000 Kickstarters left and right, but he chooses not to. And he's like, if you do this, you will fail. And initially, because, you know, we all have our ego, my back got up. I'm like, grr, arg, that's I'm going to prove you wrong. I've got the editor. I've got the team. I've got the chops. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, but I don't have the right to ask for that kind of thing.
Yeah, you don't have the track record. You don't have the track record. Right. Yeah.
So I said, well, I could bring the domain rules, or I could do grappling. And I have a long history because I wrote GURPS Technical Grappling and play-tested GURPS martial arts and all that. And I was a martial artist, you know, not great martial artist, but I did it for 10 or 15 years. And we did grappling, and I wasn't a great grappler. And I think that actually helps because you realize what it's like. If you're a great grappler, you probably just wipe the floor with everybody. And so grappling is easy, and grappling is great, and grappling is this, and grappling is that. But once you realize that you can get trapped under somebody heavy very easily and just lose.
And then physics and inertia.
And all that good stuff, right? And so, and especially in a system where you can fight a giant. Right, it's like a toddler trying to throw an adult. There's something. Yeah,
you're like grabbing him by the toe and trying to get leverage.
Whatever, exactly.
Well, let me ask you this. I just want to clarify. Now, you said you wrote a grappling set of rules for GURPS. Was that a source book? Was that a pyramid article?
It is a source book. It is GURPS Martial Arts Technical Grappling. It's kind of the pitch is like GURPS Tactical Shooting, but for wrestling.
Okay. So you've got that under your belt already for Steve Jackson Games.
It's a 50-page book, about 35,000 words. I wrote it. Sean Punch edited it. We had some great playtesters. And the concept in that book is the same concept in the Kickstarter for what is now called Dungeon Grappling, which is people like to write, or people have written a lot of rules about grappling in the past. And by and large, they have been so wanting in player acceptance that there is actually a TV trope about RPG grappling rules.
I saw that. You're mentioned on there like 2 or 3 times already.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, you can go to tvtropes.com on this. Well, so just to kind of shed a little bit of light on why I'm interested in this, there are a lot of people who reach out and say, I have a Kickstarter. And because I've only do one show a week for an hour, there's a lot of people that I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't have room on the show. Because there are a lot of Kickstarters out there. And I'm not down in Kickstarter. I love Kickstarter. But I don't have time to bring everybody on that has a Kickstarter. But I like 5th edition. I do. I think 5th edition is a good edition of D&D. I think it's been good for the hobby. I think it's been good for D&D. Every system, no matter how good it is, has some stuff you love and some stuff you don't like. One of the few things about D&D 5th edition I don't like is the grappling is non-existent. If you grapple somebody in the rules as written for D&D 5th edition, all you do is make it so they can't move. They can still I could grapple you in D&D and do a successful grapple, and you can pull out items, you can cast spells, you could do anything you want. You could pull out a crossbow and shoot somebody across the room while I'm grappling you. The only thing is I've made it so your movement is 0. And that is, I know why they did it, because they're trying to strike a balance between being too rules heavy and da-da-da. But that is way lacking. That's about one of the very few things I don't like about 5th edition. Because I'll get characters like, well, I want to kick him in the knee. I'm like, well,
That's an unarmed strike. Yeah.
So that's it. There's no called shots and there's no grappling. So I think that this is a Kickstarter that I personally could see bringing into my 5th edition game. So tell us a little bit, and you can go to the shaneplays.com show notes. It's listed there. If not, search for Dungeon Grappling RPG Supplement on Kickstarter and you'll find it. It's reasonably priced. You had a very reasonable ask to make this Kickstarter go. You've already met your goal, and now you're working on stretch goals. So tell us, if I support this, what do I get?
So the basic $5 ask is a PDF, full-color PDF with layers, so that you'll be able to turn it off. Hyperlinks, because my layout artist is Nathan Paletta, who did the Worldwide Wrestling role-playing game. So when I reached out to him and said, hey, I'm doing a grappling thing and I'm looking for a layout guy, he's like, well, certainly I approve of more wrestling in the world. And so it's $5. You get the PDF, which gives all the rules, and it'll be as much color art as I can stuff into it. And every extra pledge at this point, now that it's fully funded, sort of turns another piece of art to color.
Right.
And there will also be if we meet, goodness gracious, it's 15. Yeah, I think we're almost there, because I think we're at $1,800 now, and so we're almost at the point where I can deliver an ebook, so that if you want to read it on a tablet or a screen, that'll be available. And certainly for the backers of the Kickstarter, I think that's just going to be, hey, great, there's an ebook available, so here you go. So you can choose how you want to read it. There's also a print version, which is, I believe, the $18 level.
Yeah, and I put my money where my mouth is. You'll get a notification. As we were talking, I just backed you at that level.
Cool. Yeah. And so there's a print version. Yeah. I thought long and hard about it. Print, delivering physical goods on Kickstarter is Scylla and Charybdis. It is the giant sucking sound of Ross Perot fame is actually shipping physical product on Kickstarter. It is a great way to get yourself a successful Kickstarter that bankrupts you.
Right.
Because international shipping is horrible. And if you're doing it yourself, if you're like, oh, I'm going to get it printed and then I will box them up and ship them myself, it's a great way to be frustrated and poor. Of course, so is role-playing game design, by the way.
Yeah.
But so anyway,
what you mean? You don't get to sit on a pile of gold drinking wine and champagne if you're a role-playing game designer?
Alas, I would love that to be true, and maybe maybe Dragon Heresy will make me $1 billion, and I'll be the next Paizo, but I doubt it. Yeah. But I will plan to have the place for the giant pile of cash, but I won't sell my house before I do.
Let's be honest. Okay, you don't do this for money and fame, because even Gary Gygax did not end up, driving around in a Rolls Royce.
Right.
Right. It just doesn't work. That there are a few people here and there, but that's not, if you're wanting to get into games and designing and all that, don't do it for money and fame.
Right.
Just like video games.
I think that's, I think I would say, in a way, you do want to do it for money. If you have skills, you deserve to be paid for those skills. Almost everybody that I've worked with on Dungeon Grappling gets paid.
Well, let me clarify. Yeah. You don't want to work for free, and don't work for people who say you'll get exposure, because they're just trying to take advantage of you, except in very rare circumstances. Right. But what I'm saying is you're not going to get rich because you publish a role-playing game.
I think that's true. And you want to plan to get your book out there and give people the opportunity to give you their money. And if I could sort of take a step back, even beyond one PDF copy and one physical copy, you can get through the Kickstarter and ever more steeply discounted if you want to buy 2, 3, 4, or 5 physical copies. Every physical copy comes with a PDF you can distribute as well, or you can, it's a wonderful one. You get both. And then there's some patron tiers. There's some art patron tiers, because I like paying my artists. Artists have a hard time of it in the game industry because people will, you can't eat exposure, but you can die of it.
Yeah.
is the line that I like.
Well,
to
yeah,
use.
and I mean, I'm serious. If you're in any sort of creative, and I do a lot of websites. I'd be, hey, do this for me, and then we'll see what comes next. Nothing else ever comes next.
Right.
So any creative business, if there's truly a business behind it, then they won't just say work for exposure.
Correct.
So
that's exactly right. Anyway, so that's the Kickstarter. The rewards are there. We've got some great. I've got some people who have come in at the one of the tiers is the $100 art patron, which is also a $95 art patron because you're going to wind up paying $5 in shipping.
Hey, I hate to interrupt you. I got to get us to a break. But people, go to. He's got multiple reward levels, multiple patrons. He's taking care of the creative people who are doing this, and it adds some great rules to your game system. So go check out the Dungeon Grappling. What is it? The official name? Dungeon Grappling RPG Supplement by Douglas H. Cole on Kickstarter. And Douglas, when you do your Dragon Legacy, if you want to come back on, we'll have a whole show just about that when you're going public with that. But I want to throw some love out there to one of our sponsors. Some Goblins are your friends. Game Goblins is Central Arkansas's premier retailer of Magic the Gathering, Warhammer 40K, board games, card games, RPGs, miniatures, and hobby accessories. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Conveniently located 1121 South Bowman, right on the corner of Bowman and Canis in West Little Rock, and staffed by friendly employees, Game Goblins has expanded their store size, and there's plenty of room for exciting inventory and tables for play space. You'll like that space because Game Goblins has gaming events every day of the week. For all of your gaming needs, I heartily recommend Game Goblins. Make sure to check out their customer loyalty program that rewards you based on your actual purchases. Game Goblins earns your business and keeps it. First-time customers mention Shane Plays and receive $10 off your purchase of $50 or more. Call Game Goblins at 501-224-GAME or visit them online at gamegoblins.com. Tell them Shane Plays sent you. Comic book lovers, visit thewildstars.com today. From the mind of author and comic book industry expert Michael Tierney, it's not just a comic book, it's a comic book novel. The Wild Stars is sci-fi and so much more. Learn the explanations behind UFOs and space gods. This isn't the Twilight Zone. This is the region of the Milky Way galaxy known as the Wild Stars. We guarantee you've never read anything like it. The complete comic book novel took 20 years to tell, with one reviewer noting, the story of the Wild Stars stretches ambitiously across space and time, from small-town murders to the destruction of planets, with every event given multiple layers of meaning. If you haven't read The Wild Stars, you're missing out. Visit thewildstars.com today.
Megawars.net.
The classic online space strategy game has returned, bigger and better than ever before. Scout the universe and claim your empire. Construct, customize, and launch dozens of different starships. Battle thousands of opponents online in a team-based competition leading to the ultimate Battle of the Galaxies. Grab your slot today for the only online game where tactics and strategy still reign supreme. Visit megawars.net and get options only available in our special pre-sales previews running now.
Megawars.net.
The die is cast.
Plunge into worlds of fantastic adventure where dragons lie and the undead stalk the shades of your mind's imagines. Where creatures of legend plunder wealth through the horror of their passage. Monsters grim and foul hold the ecstasy of gold and the renown of glory. All this and more awaits you and your friends in the unlimited, fantastic world of the Castles and Crusades role-playing game from Trollord Games. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy today. A rules-light, adaptable game that has stood the test of time. 12 years in constant publication with no new additions, Castles and Crusades is the original easy-to-play attribute check system. Join us and unleash your imagination. Visit your friendly local game store or trollord.com to get your copy of Castles and Crusades today. Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/SciFi
patreon.com/ShanePlays.
Hey, welcome back to Shane Plays Geek Talk Radio. I'm joined by my guest, Douglas H. Cole, who runs the gaming blog gamingballistic.com, is working on a new Dragon Legacy role-playing game, which I hope to hear about more in the future, and also has an active Kickstarter right now, Dungeon Grappling RPG Supplement. Go check that out. Now, Douglas, I've got about 3 minutes to wrap us up, so I'm going to jump into a news segment here, but you're welcome to come along for the ride. Go ahead, hit us with that news sound there and the microphone in the newsroom, Zach. There we go. All right, this is going to be a quick one. And folks, remember, for every $1 of Patreon support that we get for the show, the news team gets a penny an hour raise. What the heck? Okay, so there's a couple of news items here. I'm just going to give you the headline, and then you can go check it out yourself on the show notes at shaneplays.com. And there's one big news item I'm not going to end the show without going a little bit more into. First, people who love the Young Justice TV show, it's getting season 3, folks. I've got an article up there linked from IGN. A lot of the same creative team. We don't know the details of how soon after the other seasons it starts and all that, but Young Justice, which is definitely one of the better animated superhero cartoons out there and has a huge following, is getting a 3rd season. EVE Online, this is pretty big. I don't know if you've ever checked out EVE Online, Douglas. I have in the past, is finally getting a free-to-play option. So it's one of the few MMOs out there that's never had a free-to-play option. It's got a rabid, frantic, hardcore fan base, and they're finally going free-to-play. I don't know how much of the content will be free-to-play, but I've got an article up from Polygon. And then I've got to mention this. I've been wanting to mention this for 2 weeks. I haven't gotten to it. They're thinking the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle has finally been solved by downburst of wind that create hexagonal cloud formations. And the reason that grabbed me was because there's this big thing about Saturn having this hexagonal formation. And so I just thought that was interesting. You know, I've wondered if it's similar. You can go check that out. Finally, Douglas, I got to get your input on this. Dungeons & Dragons, D&D, the big one, the 8 million pound gorilla. Did you see this, Douglas, that it's been inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame?
I did.
Yeah.
I did, along with the swing. I mean, quite a illustrious company.
Yeah. So they finally got inducted to the Toy Hall of Fame. I'm actually talking with Wizards of the Coast. I may have some Wizards of the Coast Hasbro reps on next weekend to talk about that. I think that's great. You know, it joins such things as bubble wrap and other fine toys from the ages. But D&D has been inducted into the Toy Hall of Fame, which can only be good for our hobby as a whole. So congratulations. I only wish that Gary Gygax and Doug Arneson were still here to get their comments on that. You know, but I know there's a lot of people still involved in the hobby that are excited. Now I've got Dungeon Master. He comes on the show every now and then from the Dungeon Master. What do you think about this?
I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
That's it, DM. That's it. Every time I have you on, you beg me to come on, and you always say the same thing over and over. You know, Douglas, how you're trying to help your friends out, and they just say the same thing over and over. Oh, DM, I love you anyway. All right. Hey, we got to wrap. Douglas, thanks so much for being on the show. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I'm not kidding. When you get your Dragon Legacy game about ready to go out, happy to have you on the show and talk about that.
No, Dragon Heresy is going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, did I say Legacy? Dragon Heresy. Yeah.
Dragon Heresy. And there's a reason for that, and we'll talk about it later.
Okay, we'll catch folks next time on Shane Plays. Thanks, Douglas.
Shane Plays Radio is blessed to have sponsors, and we appreciate them very much. However, did you know that you can also support the show as an individual for as little as $1 an episode? Simply go to patreon.com/ShanePlays.